Hey everyone, this is Louisa Munson. You might know me as Mrs. M, and you're listening to the highlights of our ebook Should I Move to Portugal, which is celebrating the first 5 years of our family life in this amazing country.
Yes, indeed, Munson here, and it's great to be here on the 19th of September 2022. On the 19th of September, at around this time in the evening, we first entered Portugal in 2017. It's great to have been here for 5 years, and we're celebrating with our book, Should I Move to Portugal? And it's my pleasure to read a page to you a day at a time and share with you some of the wonderful images and pictures that we've captured in that time too. So without further ado, let me read you the introduction. That's today's contribution. It is the introduction, which I don't think I'll be able to read this without embellishing somewhat the story. I'll do my best to stick to the script, but you know that's not going to be very easy for me to do. So there we are, coming into Portugal, into an unmanned and very deserted border point from Spain into Portugal. And the introduction is called You Should Look at Portugal. So the question is, the name of the book is Should I Move to Portugal? And I first asked myself this question in 2007. So some time ago, and I was pondering leaving the UK, imagining that my prospects might be better elsewhere. I wanted to work in a different way, imagine myself as an early digital nomad, actually, enjoying a more rural life, obviously needing some good Wi-Fi, and lower overheads and less pressure. And for many Brits, the go-to place is to think about Spain or France. Okay, that's traditionally where English people would look at to think about having leaving the country, leaving the UK, as more seem to be doing now, and heading abroad and having a better quality of life. Spain or France, usual suspects. Now, I recall having a chance conversation with a podcast interviewee of mine, vegan doctor by the name of Gina Shaw. Look her up. And she said to me while we were chatting, we were talking about her work as an educator in veganism. And I told her about my plans, and she said, you know, you should look at Portugal, those immortal words, you should look at Portugal, which stayed with me. So I did, and I fell in love with the country on my first visit in 2007. And I stayed at Quinta das Abelhas, honeybee farm, near the central Portugal town of Tabua, Tabua. And it was an amazing trip. And I met Sophie and Andy of Pure Portugal there. They were the founders of Pure Portugal, which you may know. And they hosted me as an inquisitive and delighted podcasting guest. I was there with other people, a number of people from around the world, people from Silicon Valley, people from Germany, as I recall, and others who had come over to Quinta das Abelhas honeybee farm in Tabua to work as woofers, working weekends on organic farms. It's a way, a bit like Workaway, a way of moving around the world and discovering a country, as I did for the first time in Portugal. I remember rocking up there and driving in and parking among the pine trees of their honeybee farm there. And it was before Google Maps. Well, I think Google Maps and SatNav had been invented, but I wasn't using it in 2007. And I just managed to find them by ringing them up and thinking I was in the right place, and I was. And there I stayed in a yurt on their land. I discovered Superboc. I remember laughing with Andy, which beer should I buy, Sagres or Superboc? And yes, it's just a funny name the first time you see it, Superboc. And we giggled about that, and we enjoyed a few of those. I saw a glowworm for the first time wandering back to the yurt one evening. Actually, we had a wonderful meal, and it was an old olive oil mill, the name of which I forget in Portuguese. I want to say lagar, which might be right, might not be though. And it was an old disused olive oil mill, which had been turned into a restaurant. I believe the chef was German. And I had the most wonderful rabbit stew one night. End of the evening, he came out and said, "Did you enjoy that? Because there's more in the pot if you want it." And he brought the pot to the table, and we had a fantastic meal there in, I don't know where it was, in the middle of nowhere, it felt like, near Tabua. If you know which restaurant I'm talking about, do let me know. I'd love to know where that was. And the most beautiful thing that evening was the chef came out and sat and took in the night air. He may have had a cigarette or a drink at the end of his shift, and a baby fox appeared and jumped onto his lap and had a little bit of a fuss with him. Really beautiful, all part of a magical stay in the yurt with the glowworms and the goat herder in the valley whistling in the distance, and up, 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 and whistling, and the dog herding the goats around. And it was absolutely magical. So this trip, maybe a week long, savouring and delighting in the central Portuguese countryside, got me hooked for sure. Actually, I remember going for a was it on that trip or another one, but certainly in Tabua, having my first no Portuguese haircut and shave, all with sign language and without getting my throat cut or getting a terrible haircut. I had the most wonderful haircut, and we were just conversing in sign language. It was a wonderful experience, and that was in Tabua, a lovely, lovely town to go to in central Portugal. I savoured and delighted in the central Portuguese countryside, and definitely got hooked. I recall the heat, that buzz, the cicadas, the trees, the pine trees, the distant goat herder, as I've mentioned, and the gentle way of life. This could suit me. A second winter trip followed, and I actually stayed in a self-catering home next door to Honeybee Farm, and had a lovely time there. And I'm trying to remember the name of the lady who owned that, because turns out she was a very kind lady indeed. I can't remember your name, but thank you. And it's basically that second trip sealed the Portuguese deal. I remember actually flying back. I had to come back to the UK in a bit of a hurry, wiping ice off the window of my car and thinking, yes, I could live back over there in Portugal. So I am therefore forever in Dr. Shaw's debt, who first of all said to me, you should look at Portugal. And I blame her in much the same way that people blame me now for seeding the idea of moving to and living in Portugal. And there is the picture of us arriving at about, you can see the clock on the dashboard. It might be between you and me that it's, how a clock on a dashboard doesn't get put back because you don't know how to do it. It might be an hour. It might be an hour fast. I don't know. But it was either 20 past 6, as you can see on the clock there, or it might have been 20 past 5 if we hadn't put the clock back. Spring forward, fall back. I don't know. But around this sort of time, it's now 20 past 7 on the 19th of September. So pretty much 5 years ago, we arrived in Portugal. And that was the graffitied sign that welcomed us. And thereafter, we headed into Jerez, which is the next part of the journey and the story, which I will share with you tomorrow. So thank you very much for being interested. We'd love to help you feel at home in Portugal, as Mrs. M is about to tell you. I'll see you tomorrow with the next installment. Thank you so much for being interested in our journey. We're interested in yours too.
So we hope you're enjoying listening to our adventures. Don't forget that Good Morning Portugal is all about helping you to feel at home in Portugal. And if you'd like to know more about how we can help you on your journey, just go to www.goodmorningportugal.com.